What if I told you that one of the most light-hearted comedies of the 1960s hid a treasure chest of secrets darker, stranger, and more shocking than anything ever shown on screen? Gilligan's Island was marketed as a goofy escape, a simple sitcom about seven castaways fumbling their way through paradise. But the truth lurking behind the cameras is enough to make you see the show in an entirely new light. From near-death experiences on set to feuds that turned violent, from lost episodes too disturbing to air, to myths of curses and ghost ships that haunt the show's legacy. To this day, the untold history of Gilligan's Island is a saga few fans know, and here's the kicker. Many of these secrets remained hidden for decades, buried like treasure under the sands of nostalgia. Today we're setting sail through some of the most shocking, eerie, and fascinating revelations. So buckle up, because this 3-hour tour is about to take you somewhere you never expected. And before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell because just like the castaways, you don't want to miss the next big discovery waiting beneath the surface. What if I told you that one of television's most famous deserted islands wasn't an island at all but a patch of concrete in clever Hollywood trickery? Viewers of Gilligan's Island were swept away each week by images of palm trees swaying in the breeze, shimmering lagoons, and aerial shots of paradise. But the reality behind those visuals is a detail most fans never knew. Nearly all of it was fake. The opening shots that set the stage weren't filmed anywhere near where the cast and crew spent their time. Those lush aerial sequences came from Hawaii's garden island of Kauai. Yet once the camera cut to the castaways, everything changed. Production unfolded not in a tropical paradise but in Studio City, California, on a carefully constructed backlot at CBS. Palm trees were fake, their leaves painted and repainted to keep up appearances under the blazing studio lights, while backdrops gave the illusion of an endless ocean. At the heart of the set was the infamous lagoon, a massive concrete water tank meant to simulate an open sea. It quickly became a nightmare for the production team. The tank leaked constantly, requiring round-the-clock maintenance just to keep it full, and nearby residents often complained about the strange smell that wafted from it during the summer. Actors had to pretend to struggle against waves that were in fact little more than studio-made ripples. Even stranger, the same lagoon site has a completely different identity today. After filming wrapped in the set was dismantled, CBS converted the land into a parking lot. For years, employees working construction in that lot stumbled upon remnants of the show, rusted props, wooden planks, and even pieces of the SS Minnow buried under layers of dirt. One particularly shocking find was Gilligan's actual hat, preserved as if time had frozen it in place. Workers who uncovered it described feeling like they'd stumbled upon a lost artifact, a relic of TV history hidden beneath the asphalt. The transformation of the island from a televised paradise to an ordinary parking lot speaks volumes about the ephemeral nature of Hollywood magic. It also raises an unsettling question: how many other iconic worlds we saw on screen were nothing more than fragile illusions ready to vanish the moment cameras stopped rolling? The lagoon, once central to the comedy's slapstick antics, now holds no trace of the chaos, laughter, or danger it once contained. Fans who learn the truth often say it forever changes the way they watch the show. And yet, perhaps that's the genius of Gilligan's Island. It didn't need a real island, only the audience's willingness to believe. The show reminds us that with just a few props, some creative camera angles, and a suspension of disbelief, television could create entire worlds out of nothing. But this revelation is only the beginning. If the island itself was an illusion, imagine what other secrets lurked just beneath the surface of production. Because as we'll soon discover, some of the dangers the cast faced on set were far more real than anyone expected, and in one case, almost fatal. Imagine signing on for what seemed like a light-hearted sitcom about castaways, only to realize the biggest threat to your life wasn't a storm or a shipwreck, but the very set you were working on. While Gilligan's Island was marketed as goofy fun, behind the slapstick pratfalls and coconut inventions lay a production riddled with real danger that nearly claimed lives on multiple occasions. Bob Denver, the man who embodied Gilligan's bumbling innocence, found himself in situations that were anything but funny. During the filming of quicksand sequences, producers opted for realism over safety, creating an actual quicksand pit with a homemade mix meant to mimic the sinking effect. But the special effects team miscalculated, and the mixture became dangerously dense. On one infamous day, Denver sank so deeply that he couldn't escape on his own, and the crew had to dive in and physically drag him out before he suffocated. It happened not once, but twice, proving that slapstick comedy could quickly veer into tragedy. His stunt double Bob Harris wasn't any luckier. In a lagoon stunt, his foot became tangled in underwater cables. For 3 harrowing minutes he was trapped beneath the water unnoticed by the busy crew above, until someone realized he hadn't resurfaced. By the time they pulled him out, he was barely conscious, and shockingly, some of the footage from that near drowning accidentally slipped into an episode before editors realized what they were looking at. And then there was the lagoon itself, meant to be a safe, controlled substitute for the ocean. It became its own toxic nightmare. To maintain its crystal-clear appearance under the hot lights, the water was treated with a cocktail of chemicals so harsh that fish introduced for tropical authenticity died almost instantly. The actors weren't spared either. Many developed mysterious rashes and skin irritations that doctors struggled to explain. Years later, environmental investigators classified the lagoon as a minor hazardous waste site that required cleanup, proof that the dangers weren't just imagined but alarmingly real. Alan Hale Jr., the beloved skipper, suffered perhaps the most alarming medical emergency of all, a mild heart attack during filming. But terrified of losing his role, he kept the condition secret for months, powering through exhausting days, carrying heavy co-stars, and laughing through chest pain that could have killed him at any moment. That resilience only deepened the cast's respect for him, but it also underscored the pressure television actors faced to keep the illusion alive at any cost. These stories shatter the idea of a cushy Hollywood set and remind us that comedy often hides chaos. Every pratfall, every tumble into water, every supposedly harmless gag carried the risk of disaster. And yet, the cameras kept rolling, and audiences at home laughed, blissfully unaware that the actors were sometimes gambling with their lives to deliver entertainment. It's a chilling reminder that behind even the most lighthearted shows, danger often lurks just out of frame. But if survival on set was this perilous, what was going on in the personal lives of the actors themselves? As we'll see next, some of the cast carried secrets onto the set that could have ended their careers if the truth had gotten out. What if the smiling faces you saw each week on Gilligan's Island were masking secrets so carefully hidden that not even the crew knew the truth until years later? While the show presented a cast of quirky but innocent characters, the real people behind them carried burdens and secrets that shaped their performances in ways fans never realized. Take Dawn Wells, the beloved Mary Ann, whose wholesome image became an icon of the girl next door. Few knew that during the second season she was pregnant, something she couldn't admit because of a strict morality clause in her contract. Fearful that the revelation would cost her the role, she kept silent, relying on the costume department to disguise her growing belly with clever wardrobe tricks, from grass skirts strategically tied at the right angle to props like baskets of fruit and coconuts placed in front of her during scenes. Astonishingly, she gave birth just 2 weeks after the season wrapped, and due to personal and professional pressures put the baby up for adoption immediately. It's a heartbreaking reality that clashed with her innocent on-screen persona, and remains one of the most closely guarded secrets of the series. Meanwhile, Russell Johnson, who played the professor, wasn't just playing smart, he was smart. Johnson held a real chemistry degree from the University of Pennsylvania, and he often rewrote the script's scientific dialogue to make it more believable. He even went so far as to create a 300-page manual of inventions, complete with diagrams and formulas, detailing how each of the professor's island creations might actually work. Some of his designs were later analyzed by engineers, who confirmed that over half of them were scientifically plausible. He became the unofficial technical consultant of the show, proving that his intelligence extended well beyond the screen. But even among the cast's hidden truths, perhaps the most telling is Tina Louise's quiet rebellion. Though adored by audiences as the glamorous ginger, Louise resented the role, believing it pigeonholed her as a shallow beauty. She distanced herself from the rest of the cast, declined to appear in reunion projects, and openly stated that she felt the show had damaged her career. Behind the glittering gowns and sultry delivery was an actress fighting against the very fame the series gave her. These hidden realities paint a much more complex portrait of the cast than the show ever allowed audiences to see. They weren't just carefree entertainers, but individuals grappling with pressures, disappointments, and sacrifices that were invisible to the fans who adored them. And yet, the magic of Gilligan's Island was that none of these struggles ever showed on screen. Each week, the cast transformed their personal hardships into laughter, preserving the illusion of paradise for millions. But not all secrets could be hidden. Some of the most shocking details about the show weren't about the actors themselves, but about episodes so controversial and bizarre that CBS locked them away forever. Footage too strange, too daring, or too unsettling for the audiences of the 1960s. Imagine discovering that some of the strangest, darkest, and most controversial episodes of Gilligan's Island never made it to air. Hidden away by nervous executives who feared the fallout. While fans remember the series as a lighthearted romp about castaways, lurking in studio vaults are scripts and footage that tell a far more unsettling story of what the show could have been. Perhaps the most infamous example is the so-called Reefer Madness episode, where Gilligan stumbled upon marijuana plants growing wild on the island. The entire cast filmed the storyline, which leaned heavily into slapstick humor about the discovery, but the episode was immediately shelved when sponsors threatened to pull out. Worried about promoting drug culture in the mid-1960s, only a dozen people have ever seen the complete footage, making it one of television's holy grails. Another script fully written but never produced took the concept of survival to chilling extremes. It portrayed the castaways being rescued, only to find out civilization had been destroyed by World War III. The ending left them stranded in a post-apocalyptic wasteland, a grim twist that NBC reportedly paid to bury, ensuring the script never reached daylight. But perhaps the most unsettling what-if was Sherwood Schwartz's original plan for the show's finale. He wrote a script where the castaways discovered that the island was not real but purgatory, and they were actually dead, trapped in a bizarre afterlife. CBS executives recoiled at the idea, terrified of alienating audiences, and locked the script away permanently. Then there's the darkest secret of all. In 1967, CBS actually filmed a full episode where the castaways were rescued and returned to civilization. At first glance, it sounds like the happy ending fans had always wanted, but the storyline was shockingly bleak. Thurston Howell III discovered his fortune was gone. Ginger's career crumbled overnight, the professor's inventions were seized by the government, and Mary Ann became so overwhelmed by modern life, she attempted suicide. Even the skipper had a breakdown, blaming himself for the wreck, while Gilligan ironically found unexpected fame as a motivational speaker about survival. When test audiences saw the episode, they were horrified. Many even walked out of the screening. CBS executives immediately pulled the plug, destroying most copies, though a single work print survived and is now valued at $5 million. Locked in a Beverly Hills safety deposit box, that lost episode is so tightly controlled that only 6 people alive have ever watched it in full, each bound by non-disclosure agreements set to expire in 2067. These forbidden tales prove that behind the laughter of Gilligan's Island was a much darker vision, one that hinted at themes of addiction, despair, and even the afterlife. They remind us that television history is filled with shadows where creative ambitions sometimes collided with the strict morality of the times. But if these stories reveal how far producers were willing to go in secret, the drama behind the scenes among the cast themselves often reached levels just as shocking, leading to feuds, betrayals, and relationships shattered beyond repair. What happens when a so-called tropical paradise hides not just shipwrecked characters, but real-life rivalries that simmered hotter than the studio lights? While Gilligan's Island seemed like a cheerful ensemble comedy on screen, behind the camera's tensions and personal battles erupted that shaped the cast's relationships forever. One of the most notorious feuds was between Tina Louise, who played the glamorous Ginger, and Dawn Wells, the wholesome Mary Ann. At first, their dynamic seemed professional, but resentment brewed when Wells began receiving far more fan mail, despite Louise having top billing. For Louise, who saw herself as the show's central star, it was an embarrassing blow. She reportedly demanded that producers intercept and destroy Wells's letters to protect her ego, but the truth inevitably came out. When Wells discovered what was happening, she lost her temper and, in a fit of frustration, hurled a coconut at Louise's head during filming. Though no one was seriously injured, the act symbolized the raw tension on set and marked the beginning of a feud that would last for decades. The divide was so deep that Louise and Wells stopped speaking altogether in 1967, a silence that lasted the rest of their lives. Louise's resentment toward the show didn't stop there. She openly admitted she felt trapped by the role of Ginger, claiming the series sabotaged her acting career by typecasting her as nothing more than a glamorous pinup. When reunion specials and movies were later pitched, she refused every invitation, leaving producers scrambling to find replacements or stand-ins. In one bizarre attempt, they filmed with her double and tried to digitally paste Louise's face onto the footage. But the crude technology of the time produced nightmarish results that terrified test audiences. Those scenes were immediately destroyed, cementing Louise's absence as a permanent wound in the show's legacy. Meanwhile, conflict wasn't limited to the actors. Directors, too, clashed with producers over the impossible demands of the series. Within the very first season, 5 directors quit the show, furious at the insistence on cartoonish stunts and slapstick that seemed nearly impossible to film safely. One director grew so exasperated that he abandoned the set mid-scene and never returned, erasing his name from the credits and refusing to ever discuss the show again. Even Jim Backus, the seasoned actor who played Thurston Howell III, clashed with studio brass over money, as his mounting IRS debt forced him to demand cash payments delivered on set. Transactions so tense that federal agents sometimes waited nearby to collect. It created an atmosphere where personal problems spilled directly into the production schedule, adding to the chaos. These behind-the-scenes battles stripped away the illusion of a happy castaways family and revealed just how fractured the group truly was. For audiences, the chemistry seemed seamless, but in reality, grudges, jealousy, and professional resentment lingered long after the cameras stopped rolling. In some cases, those conflicts outlived the show itself, haunting cast members for the rest of their careers. Yet even as tempers flared and egos clashed, the series powered forward, producing episodes that millions adored. The irony is that the show's greatest strength, its ensemble dynamic, was also its deepest weakness behind the curtain. And if the fights between actors and producers weren't enough, the financial side of Gilligan's Island revealed even darker truths, where money and contracts would leave scars far greater than any bruised ego. When people think of Gilligan's Island, they picture coconuts, slapstick falls, and endless laughs, but behind that lighthearted exterior lay a financial nightmare that left the cast bitter, broke, and in some cases, haunted by what they lost. Perhaps the most jaw-dropping story belongs to Jim Backus, who played the ever-aristocratic Thurston Howell III. While his character was a caricature of endless wealth, Backus himself was drowning in real-life debt, owing the IRS an eye-popping $300,000 when he signed onto the show. To survive, he made a deal with CBS that seems almost unbelievable today. He demanded his salary be paid in cash on set, where federal agents would be waiting to confiscate it directly. Week after week, Backus acted out the role of the millionaire only to hand his earnings straight into the hands of government collectors the moment cameras stopped rolling. That constant pressure drove him to ad-lib many of his funniest lines, his sharp wit serving as both a creative outlet and a coping mechanism. But Backus wasn't the only one financially wounded by the show. Every single member of the cast signed contracts so restrictive they forfeited any rights to syndication royalties. When Gilligan's Island exploded in reruns throughout the 1970s, 1980s, and beyond, the actors saw none of the profits. The show has earned over $90 million in syndication revenue alone, but the cast members received only their modest original salaries. Bob Denver, heartbroken over the injustice, attempted to sue CBS in 1989, hoping to recoup some of what he estimated was an $18 million personal loss over his career. But when lawyers reviewed the contracts, they found them airtight, leaving Denver and the rest of the cast powerless to fight. Don Wells often recalled in later years how surreal it was to see the show airing everywhere, beloved by new generations of fans, while the actors who brought it to life were struggling to pay bills. Wells herself admitted to financial hardship late in life, sparking GoFundMe campaigns from loyal fans who wanted to give back to the actress who had given them so much joy. The tragedy of these money matters wasn't just in the numbers, but in the emotional toll it left on the cast. The actors had created one of the most enduring sitcoms in television history, yet they had nothing to show for it beyond fleeting fame. It was a bitter lesson in Hollywood's power imbalance, where contracts could trap performers in deals that enriched studios while leaving the stars behind. The irony is almost cruel. A show about shipwrecked characters who could never escape their island mirrored the actors themselves, trapped by contracts they could never escape. And while financial battles loomed large, the props and costumes the cast used on screen held secrets of their own. Some glamorous, some dangerous, and all part of the show's hidden legacy. At first glance, the props of Gilligan's Island seemed simple: coconut radios, cream pies, grass huts, and the glamorous gowns Ginger somehow packed for a 3-hour tour. But behind those seemingly innocent items were astonishing secrets, some delightful, others dangerous, and all of them reminders that television magic often comes with hidden costs. Take Ginger's dazzling wardrobe, for example. Audiences believed CBS was spending lavishly to outfit Tina Louise in Hollywood-quality gowns fit for a movie star. But in reality, those dresses were hand-me-downs from major motion pictures. Studios clearing out storage would unload rejected or unused costumes, and Gilligan's Island's wardrobe team snatched them up for free. In one stunning case, Tina Louise wore a gown once donned by Marilyn Monroe in Some Like It Hot. The problem came years later in syndication when the studio that owned Monroe's likeness forced CBS to blur the dress, making for bizarre-looking reruns where Ginger seemed partially censored. Then there were the famous coconut cream pies, staples of the show's slapstick comedy. They looked delicious on screen, but they weren't pies at all, just plates filled with shaving cream, which held its shape better under hot lights. The catch: Bob Denver was allergic to the shaving cream, and every pie to the face left him with painful rashes and hives. Makeup artists scrambled to cover the irritation with heavy pancake foundation, but under the sweltering lights, Denver often sweated through it, leaving him miserable even as viewers laughed at the gag. Even the island's food props carried danger. The bright tropical fruits scattered around the set were coated in lead-based paint to make them gleam on camera. Actors were repeatedly warned never to put them near their mouths, but inevitably, mistakes happened. In one instance, Denver absent-mindedly bit into a painted prop and had to be rushed to the hospital for lead poisoning treatment. Afterward, the props were hastily repainted, though only after dozens of episodes had already been filmed. Not all prop secrets were sinister. Some were unexpectedly authentic. The iconic radio the castaways used to hear everything except news of their own rescue was a real, functioning World War II military unit. Between takes, the crew would flip it on and pick up actual Los Angeles radio stations, sometimes even pausing production to listen to baseball games, until executives forced them to disable the set entirely. This mix of glamour, danger, and authenticity gave the props of Gilligan's Island a life of their own, turning ordinary objects into iconic symbols of television history. But the strangest part is how these small details, costumes borrowed from film legends, pies that caused allergic reactions, fruits that could poison, and radios that played real broadcasts, were never meant to be noticed. They existed in the margins of the show, silently shaping the experience for both cast and crew. And while these prop secrets are fascinating in their own right, the truth is that the most bizarre consequences of Gilligan's Island weren't confined to Hollywood at all. In fact, the show's impact spilled into the real world, blurring the line between fiction and reality in ways so extreme that fans actually risked their lives, convinced the castaways were real. When most people think of Gilligan's Island, they picture wholesome laughs and silly survival antics. But behind the palm trees and canned laughter lurked scandals so disturbing they could have ended careers, toppled reputations, and even landed people in jail. One of the darkest moments came during Season 3, when Dawn Wells, America's sweetheart Marianne, discovered a hidden camera in her dressing room. Horrified, she alerted security, and an investigation revealed that the assistant director himself had installed it. Though he was fired on the spot, he was never charged, as the studio quietly buried the scandal to protect the show's image. Even more unsettling, Wells kept the camera as evidence for decades, a grim reminder of how vulnerable actors could be on set. But that wasn't the only betrayal behind the scenes. Scripts kept disappearing mysteriously, forcing producers to hire a private investigator, who eventually discovered that a janitor had been photographing them and selling them to a rival network for $20 apiece. By the time he was caught, over 50 scripts had been stolen. He served 6 months in prison, but the embarrassment for CBS lingered. Then there was the blackmail attempt. A photographer snapped compromising photos of the cast at a wrap party, catching married stars in situations that could have destroyed their careers if published. Sherwood Schwartz, the show's creator, personally paid $30,000 to buy and destroy the negatives, a desperate act that showed just how high the stakes really were. Even fan interactions sometimes turned dangerous. Alan Hale Jr., the skipper, received death threats from a viewer who believed the cast was truly stranded and that CBS was refusing to rescue them. The FBI got involved and uncovered that the man had built a boat and spent his life savings on navigation gear to launch his own rescue mission. He was eventually arrested after attempting to break into CBS studios, convinced he was saving lives. And in the middle of it all, rumors of voodoo curses swirled. When guest star Zazie Gabor's scenes were cut, furious, she allegedly hired a practitioner to hex the set, and within a week 3 cameras broke down, the lagoon pumps failed, and Bob Denver was hospitalized with food poisoning. Whether coincidence or curse, the timing left the cast uneasy. These stories reveal a darker side of television production, one where privacy was invaded, sabotage ran rampant, and fans blurred the line between fiction and reality. What audiences saw as an innocent comedy was in reality a pressure cooker of scandals and paranoia, with studio executives doing everything they could to keep the chaos from leaking to the public. But as intense as these incidents were, they pale in comparison to what happened when the obsession with Gilligan's Island escaped Hollywood altogether and began shaping real-world events in ways that were stranger and sometimes scarier than fiction. What happens when a sitcom becomes so convincing that it stops being entertainment and starts reshaping reality? Gilligan's Island might have been conceived as harmless escapism, but its cultural footprint spilled far beyond television, influencing fans in bizarre and sometimes disturbing ways. The most chilling example came in 1966, when 7 people inspired by the show intentionally shipwrecked themselves on an island near Fiji. Armed with little more than enthusiasm and poor planning, they lasted only 4 days before signaling for rescue, at which point they sued CBS for reimbursement, claiming their misadventure was method research. The network, unsurprisingly, wasn't amused. But stranger still, psychologists began reporting a real mental condition dubbed Gilligan syndrome, where patients genuinely believed they were stranded on islands. Between 1965 and 1970, over 300 individuals were institutionalized with this delusion. In many cases, recovery only came when doctors showed behind-the-scenes footage of the cast on studio sets, breaking the illusion and proving the show wasn't real. The obsession even pushed fans into dangerous territory. Alan Hale Jr., the skipper, received repeated death threats from a man in Ohio who was convinced the cast was truly marooned. The FBI investigation uncovered that the man had spent his life savings building a boat and buying navigation gear in preparation for a rescue attempt. Before he could launch his ill-fated mission, he was arrested trying to break into CBS studios. For some, the blurred line between fiction and reality was so strong it crossed into the legal system itself. After the series ended, a Wisconsin fan filed actual death certificates for all 7 castaways, listing network negligence as the cause of death. It took CBS lawyers 6 months to untangle the legal mess and have the documents voided from official records. These bizarre real-world ripples prove that Gilligan's Island wasn't just a television show. It became a psychological and cultural phenomenon, so powerful that audiences stopped viewing it as fiction altogether. To them, Gilligan, the skipper, and the rest weren't characters. They were real people in peril, abandoned by the world. It's a testament to how immersive television had become in the 1960s, a time when mass media could convince thousands that palm trees on a Hollywood lot were genuine tropical shores. But while fans blurred fantasy and reality, the show itself harbored one last layer of secrets. Stories so eerie, cursed, and even ghostly that they still linger in the lore of the series to this day. For a show built on comedy, Gilligan's Island left behind a legacy filled with stories more suited for a ghost tale than a sitcom. Legends of curses, spectral ships, and mysteries buried under concrete that fans still whisper about today. Crew members reported seeing a phantom ship floating across the lagoon during night shoots, a translucent vessel that appeared only under a full moon. Security footage captured the ghostly outline, which investigators later tied to a tragic accident: a studio worker who had died during the lagoon's construction in 1964. His brother later confirmed that the man had loved boats, giving the sightings an unsettling personal connection. Then there was the time capsule buried by the cast on the final day of filming, a gesture meant to preserve their bond and predictions for the future. It was supposed to be unearthed in the year 2000, but CBS lost the map pinpointing its location. Today, radar scans suggest several possible sites beneath the studio's concrete foundations, but to dig them up would require demolishing modern structures, a mystery sealed by time itself. Perhaps the most chilling legend of all centers on Sherwood Schwartz's lost script for the ultimate ending, in which the castaways discovered they were in purgatory, trapped in the afterlife. CBS executives locked it away in horror. But rumors persist that a copy survived, fueling speculation that the island wasn't paradise or prison, but limbo. These myths blur the line between fact and folklore, transforming Gilligan's Island into something far more than a goofy sitcom. It became a haunted cultural artifact. Fans who grew up laughing at Gilligan's antics now find themselves captivated by the darker shadows surrounding the series, from cursed cameras and ghost ships to scripts deemed too terrifying for audiences. It's as though the show itself refuses to die, its mysteries echoing long after the final credits rolled. And maybe that's the strangest legacy of all, that a sitcom about seven stranded castaways became not just a TV classic, but a breeding ground for myths, conspiracies, and ghost stories that still captivate audiences more than half a century later. Because in the end, Gilligan's Island wasn't just about being lost at sea, it was about secrets, hidden truths, and mysteries so bizarre that fans are still searching for answers today. So there you have it, the hidden world of Gilligan's Island. A show that wasn't just about a 3-hour tour gone wrong, but a production that blurred the lines between fiction and reality, laughter and danger, comedy and tragedy. What was sold as a goofy sitcom was in truth a high-stakes gamble. Actors risking their health, scandals buried under studio carpets, fortunes lost to ironclad contracts, and myths so strange they've become part of television legend. And that's the real magic of Gilligan's Island. It wasn't just entertainment, it was history in disguise. A story still unfolding more than half a century later. Which of these secrets shocked you the most? Was it the forbidden rescue episode, the ghost ship in the lagoon, or the feud that ended in a flying coconut? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, because just like the castaways, we're all still searching for answers. And if you want more hidden Hollywood stories, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the next deep dive into TV's strangest mysteries. After all, this isn't just nostalgia, it's a reminder that sometimes the funniest shows hide the darkest truths. Thanks for watching.